though the media would have you believing that they're one and the same. A dangerous dog is one that is deliberately injured or attempted to injure another person or animal. We're not here to talk to you about those dogs or the laws surrounding them. However, restricted breed dogs are dogs that look wrong according to the Victorian government. It's these dogs that we'll talk to you about tonight. The dogs whose only crime is to be born with an unacceptable shaped head and a big beautiful smile. So if you'll indulge me, I'd like to explain to you why I'm so passionate about abolishing breed-specific legislation. My name is Brianna, and I'm Lilla's guardian. Some of you may have already heard of Lilla, but for those of you who haven't, I'd like to explain to you a little bit about us. Lilla's not just a dog, she's not just my dog. Lilla is a hero, and she's my lifesaver. And with apologies to my husband, I'd say that she's the love of my life. I've been very sick for over 12 years now, and the day Lilla came into my life was the day my life became bearable. To understand this, you must first understand what's wrong with me. I've had trigeminal neuralgia for over 12 years and intracranial hypertension for 4.5. What that means for me is more pain than most people could ever hope to bear, and most days multiple blackouts a day. It means loss of vision sometimes, and horrible nausea, and a headache that just will never quit. On to the important part. Lilla has always been a very cuddly dog. She's always thrived on affection and wanted to be as close to her mum as possible. When she was a pup and I was having a particularly bad pain day, Lilla wouldn't leave my side. She'd lay very still, as she knew that even the tiniest movement could cause me severe pain, and just be there for me. I'm not ashamed to say that I wouldn't have made it through if it weren't for her. 5.5 years ago, I found a surgeon that was willing to operate on my brain in hopes of fixing me. It did help to relieve some of the symptoms, but unfortunately it wasn't exactly a success. It actually caused another problem, the hypertension. It was at this time that Lilla proved exactly how smart, intuitive and caring she is. When I started collapsing on a daily basis, I'd always wait till Lilla licking my face and laying with me until I'd regained enough equilibrium to get myself to bed. After several instances of this, I decided to try to train her to do more than that. One of the concerns of my doctors, my husband and my mother, was that I'd collapse on my back and asphyxiate, so Lilla learned how to roll me into the recovery position and then wake me up. My dog had literally learned how to save my life. She's no longer just my emotional support dog, she's my lifesaver. Then everything changed. The government decided to crack down on so-called pit bulls. I'm ashamed to say that I was as ignorant as most of the general public. I thought that pit bulls were inherently dangerous and more likely to attack. I believed the shit the media spewed, and that which the government started to reinforce. But I knew that all bully breeds had some physical similarities, so I was slightly concerned as to how the Victorian government were planning on enforcing this breed ban. But I was also confident that Lilla would be safe. After all, she was an American Staffy cross American Bulldog. When the standard was released, I scrutinised it and thought Lilla was safe. She hardly met any of it. We arranged an appointment with Hume City Council, animal welfare officers. At this appointment, I learned that according to Victorian law, my beautiful life-saving dog was actually a vicious pit bull. Needless to say, I was stunned. I tried to fight the declaration. I mean, my dog hadn't changed her personality overnight. She was no more dangerous because of an arbitrary label some ill-educated, untrained, biased witch with a bee had placed on her. She was still the same angel she had always been. She was still the only thing keeping me alive. After 12 months of fighting, crying and breaking down, we lost. My girl was forever officially a pit bull. Now Lilla has lost her freedom. She lives in a 10 square metre cage and is required to be muzzled whenever outside my premises. Representatives from council tried to convince me that Lilla needed to be muzzled when outside her cage, even in my own house, and it's just not true. There's been no law or bylaw that requires that. I like to think the best of people, so I like to think that she was misguided rather than facetiously lying in order to make things even harder for me and my family. I've already explained to you it was my idea to involve council, and now I'd like to explain why, by explaining some of the many failings of the way this law was implemented. From the day the standard and the crackdown were announced, there was less than 1 month to register your dog as a restricted breed. Then the amnesty would end and any pit bull would be seized and put to sleep. If you heard that, knowing that your dog shared 3 or 4 characteristics with a pit bull? Would you be concerned? I sure was. I was scared that on the off chance she was declared, she'd be taken and murdered if she wasn't registered as a pit bull by September 30, 2011. The news even told me as much at one point. No one ever said that if your dog was registered as any breed, it would not be killed. It would not be seized. No one ever advertised that any other breeds or crossbreeds were even implicated in this mess. So do you know that your dog is safe? What would you say if I told you that a Pomeranian, a Labrador, a Staffy or a Chihuahua would fit enough of the standard to be declared? No dog is safe, no breed is safe, and we won't know which breed is next until it's too late. And what about the dogs born after September 1, 2010? If you have a puppy that's under 2.5 years of age, I don't know what to tell you. Look what happened to me when I tried to do the right thing. If you call the council, they will likely take and kill your innocent puppy. If you don't, someone else likely will call the council and they will take and kill your innocent puppy. It doesn't matter where you brought your puppy or what breed you were told you were buying. If a council officer thinks it may grow up to look anything like a relative of a pit bull, it will be murdered like a pit bull. I can tell you that pet shops are still selling puppies that will get caught up in this mess. Dogs advertised as Amstaff Cross, Mastiff Cross, Bulldog Cross, for example. These puppies are destined to die by the hands of our government, and why? If they're deemed of type, they're dead, regardless of whether they are registered or not. Family pets, who were not a pit bull yesterday, can now be killed today just because of their age. Sounds almost as ridiculous as just because of how they look, doesn't it? And here I was thinking that discrimination was illegal in this country. All of a sudden, though, I have a local council practising disability discrimination and a legal system that allows it to. Since my experience with breed-specific legislation, I decided to get educated. I started reading, talking to researchers, doing my own research, and understanding animal behaviour better. What I have learned is that I was wrong. Wrong not to question what I was being told, and disgustingly wrong in what I believed. BSL is not the way. What I want is a government that cares about public safety, instead of one that wants to be seen to be doing something. I want to push for responsible dog ownership, for rules that prevent dog attacks. I want mandatory education and training for all pet owners, plus classes for dogs. If the government stopped the witch hunt for pit bulls and focused on what has been proven to work, they could even afford to implement an effective plan. You know, for the longest time, I thought I'd failed Lilla. I feel guilty every day when I see her in her cage. I keep thinking that there must have been something I missed, that I screwed up. But whilst writing this, I realised it wasn't me that failed her. It was my government that failed both of us. Thank you for listening. I'd now like to hand you over to Dr. David Lowe. He's been involved in over 12 cases, either as a witness or an advocate. With the VCAT cases, my apologies. He is an international terrier judge and has been to America to judge purebred pit bull terriers. David has been deemed a bull breed and terrier expert and has been personally involved with Staffordshire Bull Terriers for